I pull up in the driveway and there's literally a gator on my front porch. So I called them and I said, hey, I can't come inside. There's a gator on the front porch. I think that that's why the trust is a little bit more with us, is because we see everything about them, really. They can't really hide anything. For me, I actually was so burnt out at my job without even having another job.
I will say that the market is starting to change and is starting to become more in favor of those who honestly may not have a ton of money in the bank account to purchase a home. All right, Deanna, well, tell us a little bit about how you got into the mortgage industry and about what company you work for.
So I'm Deanna Chosewood. I have been doing mortgages for about 10 years now. I am the Home Sweet Home mortgage team powered by Bayshore Mortgage Funding. I got into mortgages because I got bored in the financial industry. I have been in finance for about 15 years. I started on the banking side. I was a teller and then moved over to member service, opening accounts, doing consumer loans, and I also did home equities. So that kind of sparked my interest because home equities were kind of interesting. It was a little different than doing a car loan. You know, you do a car loan, it's the same. Sometimes I would get people come in to buy cool cars, and I'm a car person, so like that would be fun. But I would get bored because it's all repetitive. So a mortgage position opened up with the institution I was working for, and I applied and took that position and loved it. It's always different, always changing. You never get the same thing twice. Every client is different. Making it work is different. You know, you have to get creative all the time. So I love that side of it. I bought my first house when I was 20. And it was the first thing I ever bought. I had one credit card, some student loans, and that was it. And I was like, all right, I'm going to buy a house. So I went into it, and my mortgage originator, if it wasn't for him, I don't know what I would have done, because my realtor was not the best at all. So that kind of guided me into it too, was because he helped me guide me to do it. And actually, my mortgage originator was Dan Wilcox. So he doesn't do mortgages anymore here in Ocala, but I got to see him again a few years ago and got to talk to him about that and told him, you know, your influence kind of helped me want to do this too, because you helped me so much that, you know, I wanted to help other people that needed the guidance as well.
No, I think that's 100% true. I know you mentioned that you had student loans, so did you go to school and plan on doing something else?
I did. Okay. Actually, I went to culinary school.
Okay.
So completely different. I went to culinary school, and I actually went to the Art Institute in Jacksonville. I did my first semester, and we decided that it probably wasn't a good route to go because the cost of school, I wasn't going to make that in the first year once I got out of school. So we assessed that and decided it wasn't the best. So we moved back, and I went to CTAE, which is now, It's Marion Technical now. They had a culinary program back then. So my plan was I was going to go get my culinary arts certificate, and then I was going to go to CF and get my bachelor's in business management. After culinary school, I was a little burnt out of it. I worked at a restaurant as well, so I worked full-time and went to school, which was very challenging, and I kind of decided that it may not be the route I wanted to go. I love to cook, and I didn't want to not do it for the people that I knew would enjoy it. So I actually had some regulars. I worked at a local restaurant for 7 years, and I had some regulars come in one day with an application to go work at a bank that was opening. They were going to be the branch manager, and they were like, we want you to come work for us. So I filled out the application, and a few months later they come in and they're like, all right, your start date is this day. And I was like, what do you mean my start date is this day? And they were like, we told you you're coming to work for us. And I was like, all right, well, here I go. I guess I'm getting into banking, and that's took me that direction.
No, that's really funny because, I mean, I feel like I have like a semi-similar story in some ways because, I mean, I plan on I was a dietetics major, and while I didn't work, like, I really liked to cook, but I also liked, like, health, but I absolutely hated the clinical side of dietetics. Like, I got there, and I absolutely hated it, and so I was like, well, I'm just going to go into food management or, like, quality control.
Yeah.
Because you can do that I could do that with my degree, and of course, COVID happened, and I ended up in real estate, so that was not it wasn't my plan, but that's where I ended up.
And then you just run with it, and it works.
It works. So yeah. You got to make money. You got to do something, you know? So, and the food industry is definitely not for the faint at heart.
It is not. It is not. I always know I have a fallback career. If something ever happens, I know I could always go back to doing that, but I don't think that I would ever want to. My husband tells me, no, you're never going back to that where you come home at 10 o'clock at night and...
When I graduated, that was my plan, but then COVID happened, so I didn't do any of that. But I knew what that life looked like. Like, I was very aware of that because most of my mom's family, you know, they were bartenders or servers or whatever. So while they weren't the manager, I still knew what that looked like. And, you know, like I told my wife, I was like, if I ever went back to that, I was like, you would never see me.
Never.
I was like, I would be working like crazy hours. Like one of the jobs I wanted to take, I think was for Kellogg or something in Michigan. Because we were going to move out of state. That was the whole plan and goal. Yeah. Because there's a lot of, you know, up Midwest and like North, like part of this country, there's a lot of food manufacturing there. And that's where I would go to work. And I remember looking at the job applications or whatever to apply. And I was like, I mean, I'm going to be traveling. And I told her that. I was like, I won't be home like 20% of the time. Like, I'll be flying, going to all the different food manufacturers. And like, it's part of the job. And she's like, really? And I'm like, yeah, really. Like, it's crazy. So again, food service is definitely not for the faint at heart, but I definitely think it prepares you to deal with what we deal with.
Right, because this job isn't for the faint of heart either.
No, not at all. I often see some similarities with being a dietitian and a realtor. Dietitians are very appreciated and across the board. They don't think we matter. They don't think we're worth doing our job. And dietitians just, we provide a really important service. There's something more important than the food that you consume and how that affects your body, but nobody cares about that. But in real estate, it's kind of the same thing. The realtor, we often get undervalued. Mortgage people, I feel like you guys, they have to have you and they know that. There's no option.
I mean, I feel like they need to have you too. Like,
I agree with you on that. I don't disagree. I mean, I was just talking to Mom about how all the shady stuff that was going. This is why realtors get the bad rap that they had. But there in Ocala for a while, like the houses people were buying, like probably like between 2016 and 2018. So it was like when we were still in that like weird time where houses were still pretty inexpensive and the market was still not 100% like back from 2008 still. And that a lot of shady stuff went on here in Ocala with like local realtors and local home inspectors.
And I'm sure it was everywhere.
I'm sure it was. It was just people they were just surviving.
Yep.
And they just, you know, paid people off to get the job done.
Yep. Whereas we are so regulated that...
I think that's the other thing, too, is now the regulations are so extreme that we could never get away with it.
Nope. And that's why it happens, is because somebody takes advantage and then here's your new rule.
It's kind of terrible. So I did want to ask, like, what do you think the relationship, I find anyway on my end, that you guys typically will get more trust than us realtors. So I'm curious on your perspective on how you think the buyer relationship with mortgage versus realtor is. Like, what's the difference in your opinion?
Honestly, it really just depends on the client and the realtor that they're working with. I don't get often clients that I can refer to people. Usually, you know, they come with the realtor already, but when I do, I try to feel out the client's personality to see who would be a good fit for them to work with, because I have a lot of agents that I love so much and are amazing, but everybody's got a different personality. So when it comes to that relationship, I think that's a really important side of it. Where you mentioned the trust side of it, I think it's because we have so much information about them that you guys don't see.
That's true.
So maybe they let their guard down a little bit more with us, because I do have a lot of clients that'll ask me, you know, questions, and I'll give them, you know, I'll try to give them my opinion as I can, but, you know, I do push them back on the realtor when it doesn't pertain to my industry. I can't really give you the exact advice. Here's some questions I might ask the realtor just so that you can feel better about what you're inquiring about. But I think that that's why the trust is a little bit more with us, is because we see everything about them, really. They can't really hide anything from me. They try to, but I'm going to find it out because I'm going to have to ask that question. I'm going to see your bank account. I'm going to see your credit report. And I'm not here to judge anything about what you have going on. Like, I'm here to just help you get into a house. I don't care what you're doing, you know, all of that.
How you make your money.
Right, you know. I'm not going to judge you about it. I'm going to have to ask questions, and I'll tell you whether we can use it as income or not.
Yeah, and I mean, that's not all people view it that way, but, and I like that that you do that. That's like partially why I like working with you, is that you don't really care too much about what's on the other end of the deal. Like at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. Everybody's money's green. I view it that way. I think everybody should be able to buy a house. I think everybody should live in a house, have something, halfway decent to live in, and not have to be dealing with what you deal with in an apartment complex where you have like the neighbors fighting.
Or a landlord.
All the above.
Yeah, I know. And it takes all kinds of kinds. You can't just judge somebody based off of, who they are. Everybody's different.
Yes, exactly. That's just part of being people.
Exactly.
As we have differences, and that's the importance. But I think that is also a good point that you made, talking about how you guys see everything.
Yeah.
Because we don't really see it. We don't, because I don't get the luxury of that. A lot of times people will tell me, because buying a home is pretty personal too. But I think the silent people that people don't really talk to, but they really know everybody's crap, are title people, because like your title agent really knows everything. Like if you've been through a divorce, if you have this, if you have that, if your house has been through X, Y, and Z, they're gonna find out about it.
They see a different side that we don't see.
No.
So really, yeah, they do. They see, because they don't see the personal information that I see.
No.
But they definitely do their searches as well, and they know about the seller and the buyer, so they see things that, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I know title sometimes really can just have a different perspective that you mortgage people don't have, and then I even get a different perspective too. It's kind of interesting how we all play our own role in doing what we do. But I know you mentioned earlier about having referrals, and I know a lot of times we tend to refer to you. That's just kind of how the game works. I really don't know how. I guess how do you actually end up getting those referrals? Is it like from people that you've done mortgages with before?
Yeah, so from previous clients, friends, family. But yeah, so just people that I know, past business, that's usually where my referrals come from. Sometimes on social media, if somebody's posting about, needing somebody, I'll usually reach out to them. Sometimes they reach out back, sometimes they don't. So that's kind of where those come from if I don't get it from a realtor.
Okay, yeah, so I was just curious on usually how that works. I would think that's how that would go, but I really wasn't too sure on how that usually goes. Now, I know we're working on a deal together right now that I got a referral from you, and I know I'm happy that they picked me. I'm not really too surprised that they picked me, but they did. We won't talk about that, but nonetheless, I will say that the market is starting to change and is starting to become more in favor of those who honestly may not have a ton of money in the bank account to purchase a home. I know with this specific deal, I know you closed one with their friend, and that's how you ended up with those people, and then you sent them to me, and they chose me. But
yeah, because I give multiple agents and tell them, here's who I think you would mesh with. Look them up, call them all, see who you get a good vibe from.
I think that's important, because I don't think I'm the right realtor for everybody, to be honest. Not every lead that I get to, I like working with them. I want people that like me and that I mesh well with. Makes a job a whole lot more enjoyable.
Yeah.
Because if I'm fighting all the way to the end of the deal, I want to pull my hair out, because it's just terrible, and then they're mad at me, and it's just not good. But with these specific customers that we have that we're working on together with, the deal hasn't closed yet, but we're getting there. It's been a fun one. Nothing in real estate's ever easy, I swear.
Nope, there's always, that's what keeps you guessing. You don't get bored.
I know, Lord. But nonetheless, they are purchasing with USDA. I don't know if you've seen more USDA, but I've definitely seen a lot more. Even the sellers that I've had are more to give closing costs to somehow to be more creative to get the deal to work. Mm-hmm. Where before, when I got in the market, back in 2021, because I've been in real estate for 4 years now, that didn't exist. I was calling on the phone, hey, hey Gabby, I want to purchase a house. I'm like, okay, when do you want to look at homes? I want to look this weekend. And I'm like, okay, well, if we wait and we don't make it on Saturday, the prices are going up $50,000. And that was the insanity that I was living with and dealing with on a regular basis, and being we have to go today, and if you don't go today, you're no longer going to be able to buy a home. And it was just a major issue to deal with all the time. So I'm happy to see with USDA that people are more apt to take the loan. In a lot of ways, I don't really think it's that big of a deal, but it's just not. Usually the people are just usually not as solid, I guess. But they have to have decent credit to do USDA, don't they?
Yeah, so I love USDA. I love all programs, honestly. They all are for somebody, and it's just find the right program to fit somebody in. I don't think that any program's a bad program, because they all have their own different qualifications. So it's just, one person might not fit the bucket of that one. Okay, let's go to another one. We've got options. Let's figure it out. But USDA is a great program. They are a little bit stricter. So as far as when you say solid, they do have to be pretty solid. Their minimum credit score is only a 620 though, so it's not...
Did they lower that?
I guess really some lenders may have overlays, but typically it's a 620 for USDA. But their debt to income ratios are a lot stricter. They're a lot tighter on those, so that makes it difficult sometimes, especially in our economy, because with the cost of, houses, everything's cost has gone up. So your car payments are a lot higher than what they used to be. So sometimes it's really hard to fit somebody into that bucket and keep the ratios where we need to have them. But it's a great program as far as not having to have a down payment, and then you just have to cover your closing costs, where, sometimes the seller covers that. I have been seeing a lot more seller credits coming through.
Well, and the deal that we're doing, that, they're not really having to bring a whole lot to the table.
No, they're really not going to end up having to, if any at all, without utilizing a down payment assistance too. That's really nice as well. What's a great fallback with USDA is that, a lot of times you can do that without having to have anything, second onto the house as well. But they're also the only program really that will allow you, if your appraisal comes in higher, you can roll in some of your closing costs as well. So that's super helpful at times too, because then you could, even if you didn't have seller credit, you could end up rolling in some closing costs and even having more or less out of pocket than what you were thinking. So that's really cool about USDA. They do have geographical and income restrictions, so you have to be in a rural area, but that's really easy to figure out. They have a website you can go to figure out the eligibility of a property. It's really important to check that before you make an offer on a house to make sure that it's, in the zone and everything. And then the income limits have increased in, the past years to go along with where we're at in the economy as well. So like, for instance, for Ocala now, the max income for a household of one person is $112,450. And then that goes up depending on the size. One person to four people is that amount. And then from 5 people to 8 people, it's $148,450. So it's not a very limited amount either. So you can still get people into houses with USDA that their income is a little bit on the higher side.
Yeah, no, which is a plus. I mean, especially with houses today being more expensive, it's kind of, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Here in Marion County, I know most of the USDA I know Marion Oaks still qualifies as it sits, right?
Yes. I don't think that they've changed that. Marion Oaks is all USDA zone.
And Bellevue still qualifies too, I think, because they're in 34480. So that area, I know that zip code still qualifies.
Yeah, and there might be pieces of Bellevue that don't.
I'm sure,
but
probably close to city limits, probably.
Yeah,
not.
and the majority, and it doesn't mean, because like all of Citrus County is zoned USDA.
I believe that.
So even if it is in the city areas and that, so it doesn't necessarily, because it's the city limits, that doesn't qualify them. It just really depends on the area. I would have to just completely, look it up and say,
of course,
on the map and see where it is.
I just know there's a couple of places. I just wanted to kind of give them an idea of
because
some examples.
Previously all of the Silver Spring Shores was zoned USDA, and last year they changed that where only a portion of it is.
Yeah, which is the portion that's the 4480 portion, which is actually, I think, that's the portion that goes to Bellevue High School, that goes to Bellevue Middle, and that goes to Legacy Elementary. So that's the portion that, if you're looking at a map or if you're looking at homes, that would be the area that would still is USDA there. And that's a pretty popular school district, actually, too.
It is.
A lot of people like Bellevue Middle, and I think Bellevue High, but I know Bellevue Middle is the only ones that have all of these, like, super elaborate electives.
Oh, as far as middle schools?
For middle schools. I mean, out of all the other ones, they still have programs, but they, like, really have some, like, they have culinary, they have animation, they have a health one
which is very rare for a middle school. Usually you have all those in high school, so that is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I just know that because Dorielle works at Bellevue Santos.
I haven't made it to that portion of schooling yet. My son's only 5, so we're now just figuring out kindergarten, but...
I hear it from the
I will
students.
Be there.
I hear it from the 5th graders. So every time, like, because I go and volunteer at art club, and I'll be like, so what electives are you guys doing? And they'll tell me, and then I was like, you guys have all of that to pick from? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, Bellevue Middle's got it going on with electives.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
It's pretty cool.
And starting them younger so that they can get a feel on what they might want to do.
Yeah, that's what I liked about it. Because, like, one of her students, he really wants to be a heart surgeon.
Oh,
And I wouldn't be
wow.
surprised if the kid actually, he's in 5th grade, he's graduating, he'll be going to middle school next year, but I really won't be surprised if he ends up becoming a heart surgeon. But he's going to the health elective.
That's
so he
super cool.
I think they go and do, like, volunteering, and they have health, like, doctors and people come in and talk to them, and so I think it's pretty neat that they give them that opportunity, I don't know, it's just nice to see that kids get to, like, do new things. Marion County, our schools get a lot of bad clout, and they're not perfect, but I definitely think we have some...
No school's perfect.
I agree, but I definitely think we have, like, some really solid programs. Mm-hmm. I mean, honestly, I've been kind of impressed. I'm originally from Volusia County, and the schools, at least at that time, didn't really have any of these kind of, like, specialty programs that kids could actually do and be a part of. So I think that's pretty cool. They also, I think Fort King, I'm getting ready to do a whole video on the school, so that's why I know about all these new things, because I'm just going to talk about our programs and stuff like that. But Fort King has an AI program now too, so they'll actually be teaching children, like, how to use AI for, like, whatever, I guess, for different jobs. They don't really have all the details yet. It's a brand new program.
Well, AI is still new, and I am not a fan. I am not a fan of AI. I think that it's terrible, but I understand that it is part of the future. I may not want to use it, and that's okay, but somebody else is going to have to, so it's still really cool that they're going to teach it.
I mean, I think it's neat. It's just part of coding. It's just code.
It is.
It is. It really is just code. I use it a lot, so that's a big thing that part of, like, what I do, and just in general, it has made my life a lot easier.
I know, and people tell me that. I've got a friend that we've talked about it too, and she was just like,
I don't really like it either. Like, I don't like the idea of it, but I know that, like, unfortunately, the way the things are going, it is inevitable.
It's a tool. Yeah. It is a tool, and if you use it as a tool, it's awesome. I just, a little bit of the unknown of what it could really turn into.
No, I don't disagree. I do think often, I'm like, haven't we had too many movies about this?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, but there are some cool things. Like, I know, like, Elon is building those robots and talking about putting them in healthcare, which I think would be good. CNAs really work really hard, and they make decent money, but they don't make enough money for their backs to be completely messed up for the rest of their life, having one bad thing, and they're having to use these machines and do all this stuff of, like, 500-pound people, 300-pound people. I mean, these are big people that they are having to move around and deal with. So if a robot could do it, it would definitely be a lot better. And I think we would have a better amount of care, because they could get the water that they need, and the CNAs actually could do more of the human social interaction that I think that they really need, that people need anyway.
Right.
So I mean, there's pluses and minuses to everything.
There are, yep, exactly.
I just hope we don't end up in, like, a Terminator or, like, some type of bad movie instance, because that would not be ideal.
No.
But I do think it's cool that at least Marion County is keeping up with the times.
Exactly.
We're not slow Cala anymore. That's just kind of how it's always been, is we've been so slow Cala for so long. When we moved here, I think it's been 8 or 9 years now, it was pretty still slow Cala. But then, like, I would say probably, like, what do you think, like, the last 4 years probably, it's really changed a lot.
I'm one of those too. I'm not excited about the growth. I've been here since I was 3 months old. So I say I'm from here because I don't know anything different. I was born in New Hampshire, but like I said, we moved here when I was 3 months old. I don't know anything about being up north. No. I am definitely a Floridian. So I am one of those that is like, oh, the growth, I don't love it. But I mean, I understand why it's happening and all of that, but it's not my favorite. I remember when 200 was just 2 lanes and Walmart was where Hobby Lobby is, and like that was where we went when Dixie was right next door. I'm just, I know. And I'm starting to adapt to it because I know, you can't fight it. It's going to happen, But I'm that person that is like, oh, our poor town. But it is awesome still to see, the new and the growth and the expansion of things to do and, opportunities for the kids and growing that side of it too. Like, it is great that they're teaching them AI because that is going to be in their future. No matter if I like it or, or if I love it or hate it, it doesn't matter. It's still there.
It doesn't.
You can't fight it.
No, you can't. But I am happy to see that with Ocala, and also we still are country enough that we still have programs like USDA that we can still qualify for, or even FHA is not a bad loan to go with either, really.
No loan's a bad loan.
No.
I already told you.
You have bad
no loan is a bad loan. Every program is great.
And I will say, like, right now, I know really the key is getting the house price where you're comfortable with it and not worrying about or buying down the rate is really a big thing too, because I don't know, a lot of people have been focused on how much money they put down, but I don't really think that doesn't really help you in this market.
No, well, because when you stretch it out over a 30-year term, it's it's not as big of a drop as people think that it's going to be. I can say, though, previously, I've been kind of comparing my loan programs and what I've been doing and what I've done in the past more of. And like you said, when you first started and the market was where it was, you were seeing a lot more conventional because it was easier and people, were able to do that. They weren't accepting offers if it was a more difficult program. But now I'm doing a lot more of the government loans. I'm doing a lot more non-QM loans, which is a non-qualified mortgage where, it's a one-off, and like a bank statement loan or a no ratio loan. I'm doing a lot more of those. So it's definitely opening the market to people that weren't able to buy before either.
Correct. Sellers are just feeling the pressure. Like, I was looking across the board. That's not just residential, but across the board on all real estate in like really Central Florida, because my MLS is mostly that. It doesn't include Miami-Dade. It doesn't include Jacksonville. So it's really like Tampa, Orlando, and us up here. So I don't know, North Central Florida, that area. And they had 11,000 decreased prices. 11,000 homes have seen decreases. Yep. And then residential, strictly, my mom said it was about 6,000.
Yeah.
So that just shows you where we're at in the market. So, I mean, it's a good time to be a buyer. That's why I tell a lot of people that call me. They're like, should we wait? And I'm like, I don't think we're going to have a huge crash. It's not going to be 2008. We don't have those.
There's too many regulations for that. I don't think that's something we're going to see, unfortunately. I mean, not unfortunately. That's not really. But for what people are saying, and some people are trying to wait to buy because they think, oh, we're going to have this. But we're regulated too much. It's not going to be a drop like that. When we do a mortgage, they can afford their mortgage. It would have to be something life-changing that happened to the person for them not to, be able to do it anymore. So it's not going to be like that.
No, I definitely agree with you. And I could say the biggest thing that has changed, I think, that has caused people to not be able to stay in their homes that I have found lately, it has been taxes and insurance. And that has been like a huge problem that we've been dealing with. Because new construction, the price that you see that's like $200 for the year, or like, $500 for the year in taxes is not the reality of what you're going to end up paying.
No, and I try to do an estimator for them, and then we talk about it as well, because new construction is really hard to really say what it's going to be because it's based off of the land right now. So we just kind of estimate it at the beginning. I talk about it with the clients. I also give them something at closing to talk about it a little bit more. Call me with any questions. Here's, what's going to end up happening, because that could really drastically affect somebody's affordability for sure.
Yeah, no, I mean, it goes up $200-$300. One of the people, and if you don't homestead it, which I had also known people that were like, I don't need to homestead because my taxes are so cheap. You need to homestead because if we have a millage increase like we did just a couple years ago, it changed. My taxes were like, I don't know, $1,100, $1,500 for the year. It went from that to $2,500. I mean, that's a whole $1,000 increase. That's like probably a $100 increase a month.
Well, it wasn't just the millage increase.
Yeah.
It was because of the cost of the house.
That too, but like the combination of both of it together. Yeah. I mean, I think it might even be more than that when I looked at it. I think it's close to $3,000 that I pay. And I mean, I don't live in a Taj Mahal, okay? Like, I live in a very typical starter home, and it's still that. I mean, and when that happened, it made our mortgage go up a lot. Like, thank God we had a homestead. So if you have a homestead, it it kind of trickle effect. It's a slow, gradual thing, but if we wouldn't have had that, I couldn't imagine what my payment would have been.
Right. Ours went up, I think, because we bought in 21 as well, and I think it went up about $500, but it was a higher price. And I also had portability from my other house to move over because we were there for 10 years. Don't make me explain portability because it's super confusing.
I know, but you can't port your homestead. It really, the really cheat way for me to explain that is basically whatever you had homestead before, and when you transfer it over, they will do an adjustment on your new home. That's
right. Depending on the equity in that.
And they I don't know. They have a whole calculation. That's a question for title. Title usually can explain that.
Title can explain it much better, or you can call the property appraiser's office and they can explain it too.
And they're really great actually at the property appraisers here in Marion County. I will say I've dealt with other counties, talked to other county people, and they kind of suck. But here in Marion County, they're usually pretty friendly, usually pretty helpful. And if they don't even if they don't have the right answer, they will call you back. Yeah. With that right answer. They're pretty good about that. I have to give our county people that. County employees may be a lot of things, but our zoning and, department and the property appraisers department are pretty solid here in Marion County. So if you guys have any questions about that, I'll even put their information in the description if you have questions about portability or just zoning in general. I'm pretty knowledgeable about that. I've I've kind of dealt with some of that stuff, whether it's ag or residential or A3. They get some weird ones now.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what is A3? I had to call, and I was like, you just can't have goats and chickens, but you can have cows. And I'm like, okay, good Lord. I'm like, but because they're like, they're too loud. And I'm like, have you not heard a cow?
Yeah.
I'm like, cows are loud too. Like, I mean, like, we used to live in Summerfield, and like the property that now is Sunset Hills, which D.R. Horton developed all of that, but that was a really large cow pasture for the majority of the time that we were there. And I mean, we would come out to go feed the goats, and here comes the cows, because they want to be fed too, even though that's not our cows, but they don't care. They just see grain and food.
Right.
They are mooing and so loud. And I'm like, if you're bothered by chickens and goats, I think you're going to be bothered by the cows.
Yeah.
Or the horses. They're not quiet either.
No.
So I just find that always super funny. So towards the end of my podcast, what I always ask is, what would you tell somebody if they're looking to do what you do?
Somebody looking to do what I do. Well, it takes a lot of dedication and patience. Always stay open-minded, because everything's ever-changing and evolving. So you've got to keep yourself updated on regulations and guidelines. You may think you know the answer, but always verify, because it could have changed yesterday. Boundaries. Make sure you set boundaries for anybody, your partners or your clients, so that unless you're willing to work all hours of the night, because people will call you. I think boundaries is number one in the industry, I've learned, because people will try to take advantage of you. And just, hardworking, and you have to want the ability, or have the want to help people, because that's really what this job is about. And people come to you, they have no idea what they're doing. And I always tell them, because I get told, I have a stupid question, or I'm sorry that I'm asking you this. And I tell them, listen, if I went to your job, I would have no idea what I was doing. Like, you're a nurse. I don't know anything about that. So I'm going to let you do what you do, and you let me do what I do, and I don't mind answering your questions. That's what I'm here for. That's what, we do.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with it. I tell people all the time, is when I'm a buyer's agent, I'm like, you don't pay me. So use me for everything you can. Like, if you have questions, ask me. If I don't know the answer, I'll find it. Like, I have bbeen asked on my Facebook group, what kind of chicken do you guys sell at Publix? Did I look it up? Yeah, I did. Like, I mean,
did you?
I did, because I was curious. And I was
like, I don't know, but let me find out.
But, those are the questions that you should ask, your mortgage people. If it's a question about mortgages that they don't know about, they'll figure it out. They'll figure it out. Or if you have questions about, like you said, I don't understand how, the whole transfer thing is, but you'd be able to give them the resource to find that. So, don't live in the dark. Don't always go by Google. Contact your local people that you're working with, because at the end of the day, it's all about the relationship.
Anybody can put anything on the internet, so don't trust that.
You live here locally. I live here locally.
Yep.
We're the local people. We know what's going on. I'm generationally from Florida. You've been here in Florida a long time. So, I mean, whether it's here in Marion County or another county, I mean, we kind of know how it all works. Because, I mean, that's kind of the beauty of working with local people. And again, I think you care about the relationship, and I do too. I get asked questions even after people have moved in.
Oh, yeah. I tell them, this isn't the end. I am with you from start to finish. I go to closings with my clients, which you know.
Yes, you do.
And that's not the end of it. You have my cell phone. You can call me if you have any questions. Shoot me a text. I don't care. Like, I'm here for it. You're going to want to buy a house again. Call me then. We'll figure it out. All right. Well, we need to sell this one. You want to rent this one? Let's see if we can make that work for you. So it's an everlasting relationship, I think, that I try to create with my clients, and I think that's what it's all about. This business is all about relationships.
Yeah, no, I think that's the important part, because without that, I mean, we wouldn't have what we have. I mean, I have people call me about, like I said, even about chicken. So it's just,
I love that.
I had somebody else call me to ask about alligators. They were like, is there just alligators in the street? And
so fun story.
Okay, go ahead.
About an alligator. So I live in Marion Oaks. I live way in the back. I have a little over an acre. We butt up to, there's a ranch out there that's, hundreds of acres. So we butt up to that. And about a block away is like wetlands and that. So one day I come home, my husband called me. I just got to the office, which I don't have an office anymore. I work from home. I love that. That's my favorite part about my job. I get to see my son a lot more. But I just got to the office, and my husband calls me and tells me he thinks my son broke his arm. So I'm like, all right, I'm on my way home. I pull up in the driveway, and there's literally a gator on my front porch. So I called them, and I said, hey, I can't come inside. There's a gator on the front porch. It was just a little swamp kitty. It wasn't, that big. But nonetheless, it was a gator, and I wasn't going up to it.
No.
So, yes, they can happen.
It can.
It can happen. You're in Florida, and if there's a body of water around, there might be a gator.
That's what I told them, because I said, look, it's not like South Florida where, like, like in Naples, I can be downtown Naples, like, in the city and look down in the ravine, and there just sits a little alligator.
Yeah.
Just chilling. I mean, it's usually not a very big one, but they're just sitting there down in the canal. I mean, that's pretty typical there. I know when my wife went down there the first time, and we went for, like, a run or whatever we were doing, and she like, oh my God, there's an alligator down there. And I'm like, welcome to Naples. Well, welcome to South Florida. It's so typical. But here in Ocala, unless you're like in the wetlands or the swamp or whatever, I don't really see them like that for the most part.
Yeah.
It's a little different. But like, she's like, so like, do I need to be worried about them? And I'm like, well, for the most part, usually they're more scared.
Just be observant.
Yeah, just don't feed them, for God's sake.
No. I look all the time, though. Anytime we go past any water, I'm looking for a gator.
At Paynes Prairie, I'm always looking. It was so funny that my wife and I went there when we first got together, and we were at Paynes Prairie or whatever, and she goes, I think that's a log. I said, that is not no log. That is an alligator. And all of a sudden, it like started like moving, and I was like, I told you.
Yep, that's a gator.
It's a gator. I mean, they got some big ones there.
Yeah.
And there, you know, if you drive through, there's a chance you'll see them going across the road and stuff, because it's just...
For the most part, though, if you don't mess with them, they're not going to mess with you.
Or if you're too dumb, like some of the college students over there and the Paynes Prairie, they started fishing. I think they finally stopped that, but they were fishing over there. And I literally called. I don't ever do this, but I called because I was like, these kids are literally going to get eaten. Like, they're going to see it on the news, you know.
Oh, my God.
You know, college students attacked by gator at Paynes Prairie.
While they were fishing. Yeah.
I'm like, oh, my God, guys. And they were fishing on the other side, which is usually not even, like, as wet as, like, the others, like, the side where they have, like, the little walkout and everything.
Yeah, there's definitely a ton of gators out there.
Yeah, I just saw a ton of them. So it was, well, it wasn't hilarious. I guess it kind of was, but their stupidity was hilarious to me. But I mean, good God, you don't get eaten with a gator. And that's a hell of a way to die.
Yep, you just always got to have the mindset. If there's a body of water, there could be a gator. We have a pond in the backyard, and I think he's probably smelled the water, and that's where he's going to go. But
yeah, I know. So. I know. I told her that I'd be more worried about water moccasins than I would be the gator, to be honest.
Yeah. They're going to be more aggressive.
Yeah, I'm sure you guys deal with them, because when we lived in Deltona, we had like a small pond thing in the backyard too, and there was more snakes than anything.
Yeah, we don't. No, not too bad. We have a couple black snakes, which we keep them around because those are the good ones to have. They'll eat a rattlesnake.
Yeah, they're good to have. But yeah. Is there anything that your big plans coming up this year, Deanna, goals that you want to share with her? Anything you want to add before we wrap up?
I don't really have. I mean, just continuing to grow my business, my branch. I hope to maybe bring some originators on with me. I have my own branch now, so I love that, and I love the company. I'm so glad that I made the move last April. I actually was so burnt out at my job without even having another job. I was going to get out of the business completely. And Bayshore reached out to me and told me all the things I wanted to hear. I decided to go on, no strings attached. I could leave anytime I wanted to. And I ended up loving it. It was everything that they said it was going to be. We're based out of Maryland, but it is definitely a family feeling of more of like I would say with a restaurant, I never really wanted to work in corporate. I always stayed with mom and pops. And it's kind of like that mom and pop feel. Everybody is so willing to help and get things done. If there's an issue, they're more than willing to make a change. If you have a suggestion, they're open to hearing it, and they actually incorporate it into the company. So I love that, and I think that other originators would also love to have that with a company as well. My ultimate goal is to eventually be a non-producing branch manager. I had that support previously, and I think that that is something that originators lack, because just like you, if you take a vacation there's no vacation. You end up still working. And having somebody there to be able to pick up the pieces for you, I think is a huge help when you're trying to disconnect a little sometimes. So my ultimate goal would be to get to that. But other than that, my big plans are hanging with my family. We've got a big road trip coming up. We're going to do the Motor Trend Hot Rod Power Tour.
Okay.
So that's going to be a 5-day road trip. So I think we go to Indianapolis, Illinois, Michigan, and Ohio. It ends in Ohio. And then we just so happen to have a wedding in Ohio 3 hours from the track.
Okay.
On the day that it ends. So we're literally going to be going from the track to the wedding, probably getting dressed in the parking lot. Spending a couple days in Ohio.
Yeah. No, I'm going on a 2-week trip in July.
Okay.
Of course, I'm busy. Like, this is kind of how it goes, but we're driving out to Utah and back. So
fun.
We've done it before. We're gonna be farther up into Utah. We're gonna go to Salt Lake City, but
okay.
But we went to the Grand Canyon before, so we kind of went this way. This time we're kind of going up, and then we're gonna be in Colorado for a couple days and then
fun,
come
yeah.
back. So I'm excited. We're going back to Austin too, and I really like Austin.
Okay.
Kind of a fun city. It has some really good food.
We're food people, so I've
Yeah.
already been mapping out our trip to see, okay, so where are we going to stop and all of that.
And the weather there is so nice during that time of year. It's
going to be so much nicer than being,
I know.
Yeah, in the heat. Yeah, there'll be a little break of the summer for us. So.
Yeah, no, it's nice. We went up to Michigan for a friend's wedding a couple years ago, and I was just like, oh my God, it's so nice up here.
Yes.
And it's like, I was like, we can go for a walk, and it's like July. Like, what's going on right now?
Yep.
Yeah, so super crazy. Well, it was great having you on, Deanna, and I look forward to us continuing working together.
Yeah.
We hope you guys enjoyed this episode and learned a lot. If you guys have any questions, always feel free to reach out to Deanna or myself, and I'll get you connected with her. Thanks so much.